Welcome to Grow Your Wealth, the podcast where scaling a successful brand and your wellness go hand in hand. I'm Rena Goodwin, founder and CEO of Factor PR, a top beauty, health, and wellness PR studio, and I'm here to help you work smarter, not harder. Each week, we'll talk branding, marketing, and business growth alongside real, practical insights from trailblazers who are building businesses without the burnout. If you're ready to grow your brand, protect your energy, and design a life you love, you are in the right place. Let's grow. Hey there, I'm Rena Goodwin, and welcome back to Grow Your Wealth. Lately here on the podcast, I have had scheduling, efficiencies, and overall day-to-day optimization in my mind. I think it's the start of the new year. By the time this podcast episode airs, we are also talking about the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology that everyone is super, super stoked about, it seems, at least from what I've learned online. So if you're not familiar with all the hype around this year, 2026 being the year of the fire horse, if you look back to 2025, this was apparently the year of the snake, where there was a lot of shed going on. So we were shedding old versions of ourselves. And with the year of the fire horse, this is really stepping into this higher level of ourselves where we can truly run and run free. And, I've been kind of leaning into this myself. It sounds cool. It sounds like, sure, why not have a great excuse to step into the highest version of ourselves? And while this certainly seems daunting, right? There's no manual for how to do this per se. I have really found that our day-to-days are what helps us really become the person that we want to be. So our habits really shape who we become and who we are, quite frankly. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about today some of my own personal habits that I use at work, that I use in my personal life, that is not necessarily exactly the same week by week, but that really helps underline a rhythm so that I've got some predictability, and this predictability is really routed around my natural energy and how I'm able to not just get work done, but also step into my highest self because I'm working in my own natural rhythms and with my own natural gifts. So for today's episode, I just kind of wanted to pull back the curtain a little bit and share what has been working for me recently. It might not work for you, and my schedule is not perfect. I will not tell you that it is flawlessly optimized. It's not beautifully color-coded. It's not a masterpiece. It doesn't always go according to plan either. But I'm someone that thinks constantly about optimization and efficiency. You can ask my team, which they will definitely back me up on too. But not just optimization and efficiency in terms of how we stack our schedules, but also about energy, because that's really what time is, right? It's energy. So I think about brain power. I think about how to build a business that supports my life instead of just competing with it. And so over the past 2 years, I've really tweaked and refined my schedule enough that I finally feel like I'm in this rhythm that seems to be working pretty well. Again, it's not perfect, but it's intentional. And so I'd like to share more with you. But before I walk you through my Monday through Friday, I want to just zoom out for a moment and remind us all that your day-to-day should really try to satisfy your ultimate outcomes. So whether you are a CEO, an entry-level professional, an intern, or somewhere in between, the important advice that I can give you is that you got to structure your days around your larger priorities, not around reactivity, not around other people's urgency. I say that as a PR person, where we absolutely think about other people's urgency. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment and why this matters. But for me at Factor PR, my business priorities are very, very clear. First, client relationships and retention. Second is team support. Third is new business development. And fourth is thought leadership, like this podcast, in community. So everything on my calendar needs to serve one of those four things, other than kind of arguably a fifth category would be self-care, clarity breaks, things of that nature, which I do make space for in my calendars. I'll tell you when here in just a moment. So because most of my Monday through Friday is really focused on business, at least through those business hours, I have to be efficient. I have two young daughters, and when they walk in the door, around 4 p.m. every day, I want to unplug as much as possible. I don't want to be half present for them. I'm not perfect at this, but this is something that has really, really become only more important to me, is making sure that I am not spending my time toggling between snack time and Slack time, right? So when I'm working, I am working. And when I am with my kids and with my family, and now our puppy, we got a puppy over the weekend too. That's a whole other thing. Send me your puppy tips, please. I want to be present with them as well. So the way that I structure my week is really built around protecting my energy so that I can focus on moving those 4 priorities forward. So let's start with Mondays. I love Mondays. What do they say? Never miss a Monday. I think I read a book that was called that at one point. I could be wrong about the title, but if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Mondays are so important here at Factor PR. Mondays are our client meeting days. So I talked in a previous episode just a few weeks ago about batching your time and batching certain similar activities or similar mindsets or similar objectives into the same time frame. There's research out of Stanford University that shows that this back and forth jumping between I'm working on client stuff, I'm working on business stuff, I'm working on family stuff, what they call contact switching, which is constantly shifting between different types of tasks. And in my case, even conversations. This type of activity significantly drains cognitive energy and productivity. No good, right? So as a CEO, right, where my goal, my first priority is client retention, client satisfaction, these results depend on clear thinking. So I cannot be burned out and serving my clients well, right? I have to protect my brain power just like my team does. So they do the client calls the same time that I do the client calls. And we all know at Factor PR Mondays, and I'll talk a little bit about Tuesdays too, are really, really focused on client relationship and retention. So instead of scattering these calls throughout the week, as I talked about on a previous episode, this is something that we admittedly used to do, right? Where a client was like, well, I'm only free on Fridays. And another client, well, I can only do Wednesdays. Now we just kind of gently encourage our clients to meet us in the middle and work with us on a time during a Monday or a Tuesday that we can get together, because Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays are so critical for media outreach and influencer outreach, which I'll talk about here in just a moment too. So Mondays are dedicated to our client calls. Most of our clients meet bi-weekly or monthly at Factor, and those calls are usually between 30 to 45 minutes. And I like to make sure that these calls are spaced again in batches. So rather than one at 9 a.m. and then the next one at noon, kind of try to put them all in the morning or all in the afternoon or all within like a 4 to 5 hour block period. Some of those calls, like I mentioned earlier, do spill into Tuesday mornings. And that's simply because, like I said, not every client can meet on Mondays. I mentioned meeting in the middle. I recognize that we need to do that as well too. And as we've grown, we also need the space. So one of the commitments that I've made to myself recently is not overbooking myself. And so I'll talk more about that here in a moment. But, if we're going to do 8-10 back-to-back calls on Monday, we still need some energy for Tuesday, right? So we also need a little bit of space. So the majority of our client calls are on Monday. We do have some every other week that also spill into Tuesday. But again, the intention is the same. If I'm in client strategy mode, I stay in client strategy mode. I've also learned to stop expecting deep work from myself on Mondays. So this is actually kind of a relief in many ways, because if you're like me and you get excited about Mondays and excited about all of the potential and you want to jump right in feet first. And I've actually found my energy is better just to have those client obligations out of the way, so to speak, first and foremost, because that is my top priority. And then I love shifting into my other priorities throughout the week because I've got the biggest ones done first. So I design around that instead of fighting against it. Now, this is important too. As Factor PR grows, my goal is not to lead every client call forever. I know that with a lot of other agencies or a lot of businesses, it's kind of unusual for the CEO to be in all of the client calls. And I'm not necessarily in all of them, but I'm in most of them. And honestly, I'm not really leading the calls. Really, my team is. I am just there to help with any kind of strategy and oversight. And if you've listened to some past episodes of Grow Your Wealth, I've talked a lot about reclaiming some of those responsibilities over the last year so that I can really be on the front lines alongside of my team and help with systems and optimization specifically for our clients. And as of the start of 2026 this year, being more involved, having a little bit more oversight and putting together these very specific systems and ops for client delivery has absolutely shown up as retaining more clients at Factor PR. So this is really important because this has been a year of kind of learning and tweaking. And as we get really, really good, I can start to kind of pull back from that stuff too, because I've got this incredible team and I want them to step up to the plate too. So we'll talk more about that here in a moment. But part of scaling, I believe, as well, is gradually loosening your grip in the right areas. So even when my schedule today reflects where we're headed, not just where we are. So Tuesdays usually finish out the client calls in the morning and then shift into new business or networking in the afternoon. If it's a meeting heavy day, I cap myself, like I mentioned, at around 4 to 5 meetings a day now. That's it. This is so important. I start to feel myself fizzle a little bit if I am just back to back to back. I've even lost my voice on certain days because, I'm in these meetings and I'm presenting, I'm talking a lot. And it's just a cue for my body that, hey, slow down. You need to rest. So energy management matters more than squeezing one more call in. Now, Wednesdays through the rest of the week are structured in a way that's more factor focused. So Wednesdays for me are more intentionally open. I love Wednesdays. I don't want to necessarily say slower, but I've got a lot more flexibility on this day. I might leave the office for a lunch, an event or meeting. I might take on a few new business calls. The pace is a little bit different than Mondays and Tuesdays. And that change of rhythm really energizes me. It gives me space to think. It gives me a little bit more space to be creative. It's when the team also is a lot more heads down and executing. So that's really great as well too, because I have full confidence in my team. We've, obviously connected early in the week. They know their weekly KPIs, their monthly KPIs, their quarterly KPIs. And Thursdays are when we get together as a team to review those KPIs. So Thursdays I really consider more of my coaching and content days. So Thursday mornings is when I record the Grow Your Wealth podcast. It's when I'll also appear on other podcasts if I'm being interviewed for something. It's when I do my Real Fluence coaching calls around lunchtime in the afternoon. So the first part of the day is kind of more in terms of coaching and content kind of externally, whereas the second half of the day, come Thursday afternoons, this is really focused back on team. So we're touching base before the end of the week. Now, my role in this meeting is not to micromanage. It is literally to help the team remove obstacles that they are not able to remove on their own. So a lot of questions that we ask in this meeting are, where are we stuck? Why aren't we able to move forward on this? What decisions are needed? What is blocking momentum? How can I help? If I can clear the path, the team can run. So love these Thursday afternoon meetings. They are lengthy on purpose. We used to meet Tuesdays and Thursdays as a team. And over time, I thought, as much as I love seeing my team, that it was kind of slowing things down and starting to get very repetitive. So I've certainly seen a boost in efficiencies and productivities, not only for myself, but for the team too, by limiting that team huddle time to one day out of the week, and then just having a lengthier meeting. Because I'll be honest with you, we were always going over on time. So efficiency is important. And this structure has been working out really well for us as a team.
Hi, friends. I want to tell you about our new and improved authority accelerator from Factor PR called RealFluence. RealFluence is the only membership that helps beauty and wellness founders grow their reputation and authority to attract new customers without endless discounting, advertising, or going viral. Inside, you'll learn how to get recognized for your product or your expertise, partner with other founders, and become the name people trust and talk about, all with the guidance and community to support you every step of the way. Remember, you can't buy authority. You have to earn it. And RealFluence is here to help. Visit therealfluence.com to get started.
Fridays, last but not least, are my no meeting days, and they are also the team's no meeting days. So I urge the team, if at all possible, try to avoid scheduling meetings on Friday. That's just part of our company culture. Fridays, I call, for me personally, is my CEO day. The team is working on reporting on Fridays. I will glance at reports. We send out a status report to all of our clients every Friday, as well as a dashboard. So I like to catch up with those in the morning, check in on those KPIs, and helping the team, if necessary, with any planning for the next week. But for the most part, they're pretty self-sufficient. And so they really use those Friday mornings to conclude any reporting from the previous week and get some planning done for the next week too. So Fridays are really looser, and that is by design. So this is when I will also, after my kind of morning CEO activities, which includes things like looking at financial reports, this will also include wrapping up any loose ends with particular partners. It also is a content creation time period for me. It's really when I focus on Factor PR versus anything client related, team related. I'm like, okay, these are the things that I absolutely have to do that nobody else can do. I do that on Fridays. Throughout the Fridays in the afternoons, I will also usually build in a little bit of wiggle room for myself for my self-care, which is so important, not just for me, for anybody, I think, is to pencil in time throughout the week. I know a lot of people like to do this on Sundays or Saturdays or the evenings. I love that for you. It does not work out very well for me because, again, I've got two small kids. They want their mom. They need their mom, and I want to be with them too. And so, that's kind of sometimes my own mom guilt. I'll totally do stuff like go to a yoga class with a girlfriend, or go to a sound bath, which I'm absolutely loving lately here and there. But for the most part, I will reserve Fridays in the afternoons for any kind of healthcare appointments, self-care appointments, things of that nature, because I've earned it, right? I've worked really hard throughout the week. This is when I have childcare. I know that just in terms of any kind of like execution and outreach, Friday afternoons are not great. I joke with our clients, but I'm like, thankfully we don't have to do much bad news announcements for our clients. I can't remember the last time we did that, but a great time to do that is on a Friday afternoon because people are checked out. As a busy mom, Friday is really my like catch up on life day. So I stay connected. I'm on Slack, but I'm not stacking calls. And before Friday ends, I review the upcoming week. So I look at my calendar and I ask myself, does this upcoming week reflect my priorities? If it doesn't, I got to shift things around. And so just to give you an example of how I conducted a really great Friday was even just this past Friday where by the time I sat down at my desk in the morning, I chipped away at a few important to-dos. I just hired an executive assistant, which I'll talk about here in just a moment, and assisting her with some onboarding activities. I reviewed our status reports. I asked the team questions if there were any kind of loose ends or open-ended conversations since Thursday. Everyone was well directed. They knew what to do. They didn't need me, quite honestly, right? And so I felt really good about that. I went and I did some self-care. I actually visited our client, Monodermatology, and I did this really cool procedure on my face called Soft Wave, which I learned about at one of their events. So I got to support a client while I also got to support my well-being with some skincare, which is really exciting. I won't see the results for like 3 to 4 months, but still something that, again, I'm seeing the long run. And that's just something that I've really grown into being able to do a lot better for myself, is looking at the day-to-day, habit stacking in a way that supports me in the long run. And when I take care of myself, I take care of my clients, I take care of my team, I take care of my family. That's a lot. And it can be really, really easy to put yourself last. I'll say that again. It can be really, really easy to put yourself last. And I'm trying to be better at that. And speaking of which, you guys, it has taken me 10 years of owning this agency for me to wake the hell up and get an executive assistant. So I'm going to talk more about this because I'm literally in like day 5 with this wonderful woman that I hired recently. She is local. She is supporting me at Factor, and I could not be more excited. I read this incredible book a few years ago. It's a very popular book by Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time. Really recommend that book, by the way. And Dan Martell talks about exactly that, how to buy back your time, particularly if you are a business owner, because your time is arguably the most valuable. And that's not just time like putting in a time card and clocking in and out. It's also your energy, right? And Martell argues in this book that your first hire should be an executive assistant, because this EA will remove some of the more administrative stuff off of your plate. And then you hire people for client delivery. Well, I didn't do it that way. I did it kind of backwards, where I hired for client delivery first. And it's worked out, all things being said. It has worked out really well because, again, my first priority is client retention, because if I have great clients and they stay, I've got a business that is thriving, right? So it's taking me a while, and I've finally decided I need to hire an executive assistant. Yes, I know a lot of people are saying like, are EAs even relevant anymore with AI? For what I do, absolutely. And so my new EA, her name is Alice. She is only focused on company related things. So she is not client facing necessarily. She's not working on client delivery. She's not on the accounts team. She's there just to support me so that I can support my 4 priorities that I chatted about earlier as best as possible. So I'm going to talk more about that later, but I also just didn't want to make it seem like, I don't have any help, and I absolutely do. And I also couldn't do this without my incredible, incredible team at Factor. And that's something that I really try to stress and coach them on too, is working with your own energy, pausing, prioritizing, all these things that we're talking about today. Their schedules are very similar to mine. And I think that's why we all feel not burned out and feel pretty good too. We've got some flexibility built in as well, which I think is really important. Okay. So last but not least, I also just want to talk about a few non-negotiables that also help protect and optimize my performance as well. So I think this is important because, just in terms of the day to day, I don't wake up and go straight to work. I need me time first. This is so important. So first thing in the morning, I spend time with my kids before they go off to school. I have an amazing partner, my husband, Jody. And he is the one that typically takes the children to school in the morning. I could not be more grateful for him. I love to take them to school when I can, but based on my schedule, it can be really hard since I start my days with meetings typically. And so he takes them to school, and I work out after that time period. And so I like to do strength training. And so I'll work out about 4 days a week to do some kind of strength training. And then in terms of like cardio and various movements, we do have a Peloton. I'm kind of over it, to be honest with you. So I prefer, when the weather is cooperating, that I'll take walks after lunch or at the end of the day to really reset. So when I'm done with my meetings for the day or done with the day before the kids come home, it's nice to put like a separation between work time and family time. And sometimes for me, that's going outside and touching grass. And so, in the evenings and, so forth, after the kids come home, I try as much as possible to be more connected with them. We have dinner together as a family if we're not doing, school activities or tutoring or, going out with friends and things like that, as long as we're in bed at a reasonable time. This might be kind of surprising for most, but I am in bed usually by not long after my kids go to bed. So this, once my kids go to bed, with the exception of like the weekends, I am not watching Netflix. I'm not cleaning the house. I'm not doing any projects. I am pooped by the time they are put to bed. I like to go to bed somewhere around 9 and 9:30. Sleep is a non-negotiable for me. I love to sleep, and the more responsibility I carry, the more I understand that recovery fuels performance. So that also means for me, limited caffeine. I love coffee. I love matcha. Jody and I have been just kind of trying to cut down on the caffeine because there can be over reliance on coffee, especially when you enjoy it. And again, when you've got small kids, maybe they don't sleep so well at night, like I'll just like pound the coffee and then your heart starts pounding and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? So what we have done is started, cutting our coffee to half calves instead of the full calf. So that's been good. So I drink about like 1 cup of full caffeinated coffee a day. If you kind of add them all up, maybe 1.5 if I'm feeling like, oh, I need a little bit of oomph. Always adding some 5 milligrams of creatine to the coffee as well, which I find helps a little bit with some of that focus, helps a little bit with some of that brain fog. After working out, I always follow up my workouts with a protein drink too, which is super important just for, building muscle and all of that good stuff too. I always say like healthy CEO, healthy business, right? And it really does start with not just your activities at work, but in your personal life. I'm the same person, at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., whether or not that I'm at work. And this same vessel, so to speak, has to be able to serve my personal life as well as my professional life too. Last year, I also stopped drinking alcohol, and originally this was a health decision, but it has also dramatically improved my clarity and energy too. So love, love, love that I've finally made that decision. And then, throughout the day too, I can be really, really bad about nourishing myself just in terms of, sitting down for lunch and, cooking myself something every day, especially because of where we work. That doesn't happen. So instead, lunch is usually something like leftovers if we're not going out to a lunch, and, healthy snacks and protein drinks and things like that too. So as I mentioned, I aim to be present and productive, but listen, I don't always get it perfectly, right? And that's something that I'm working on for sure. So if I zoom all the way out, my schedule, as you can see, there aren't a lot of productivity tricks. It is really just about consistency, right? It's about consistency. It's about alignment. It's about everything on my calendar serves a priority, right? I know that during these times of the day, 9 to 5 or 9 to 4, actually, my priorities are on work while my kids are at school. And those priorities start with client engagement and retention, team support, new business development, and thought leadership and community, in that order. And my calendar, as you can see, reflects that. So if something tries to get on my calendar that doesn't reflect one of these priorities, I pause and I'll probably say no to it. So if you do take one thing from this episode, let it be this: start with your outcomes. Okay. Define your priorities and then design your week around them. Because if the outcome that you want is less burnout, if the outcome that you want is a healthier mind and body, take a look at your schedule and see, does my schedule reflect the outcomes that I want? Because if your outputs do not line up with the outcomes that you want for your day to day or for the rest of your life, then we need to design your week around those outcomes. Your energy is your most valuable asset. So you must protect it. We must structure around it and give ourselves permission to iterate until it works. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be intentional. And I promise you this, and I'll probably make a note of it to do a similar recording 6 months from now. My schedule will probably be changed a little bit too, right? Because outcomes shift, intentions shifts, business shifts, life shifts, and we've got to make sure that we don't lose focus. Otherwise, it'll become chaos, right? So I hope that this episode was helpful. I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more personal and share with you what I've kind of concluded as of late has been working very well for me, just in terms of scheduling and habit forming and things of that nature. So that if some of you are kind of thinking about shifting things around or trying to optimize not just your schedule, but your life, here's an option that works for me. But you got to do what's best for you. My outcomes are going to look very, very different than yours. So again, try to batch them together is one great piece of advice that I can give you, and work with your natural energy and make sure your priorities are reflected in your calendar. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. You can head to the Grow Your Wealth podcast. That's at Grow Your Wealth podcast on Instagram. You can also find us on YouTube. Leave a comment in the comment section if you've got some great tips and tricks for how you optimize your weeks as well. I look forward to connecting on any of our social platforms. And if you liked this episode, would love to also invite you to leave a rating and review. It certainly helps with getting this podcast discovered too. I will keep you guys posted on the puppy. I will keep you guys posted on the soft wave, and I'll keep you guys posted on the assistant as well. Very, very exciting stuff, at least for me, right? Thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode deposited some useful advice and insights to help you grow your wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future conversations. You can find more resources, episode details, and updates at growyourwealthpodcast.com. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram. Follow me at Grow Your Wealth Podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or takeaway from today's show. Until next time, remember, burnout is optional. Take care, and I'll see you next week.